Okay, Juan, in theory, we're live. Man, it's always good to see you, and really appreciate you taking the time here. So, I just want to set the table, kind of real quick for folks of what we're trying to do. And again, I'm holding Juan up as an example of what we'd like businesses across the Colexico Territory to be doing. And so, we're going to get into that. So, this is my good friend Juan DelaRoca. Juan, I met Juan years ago, and when gravel grinding was just gravel on dirt roads, and the grinding part wasn't there. And he's really created kind of he's been one of the tip. I'm going to say the tip of the spear of that industry across the country. And he started with one of their guides here in Trinidad. He's got a very talented partner in Stephen, and they've got now a big team office here in Trinidad. And one of the things we're trying to do, we're going to do a series of these. We're going to reach out to people who have always looked at our area. And Juan certainly is broader than that. He's got 18 guides out there. 19's about ready to hit, which is a cool one. And then 20 will be right after that. So that's success in something that somebody's passionate about. But what we're really trying to do is reach out to folks across Los Animas, Huerfano, and Colfax counties, folks that have always seen this as a region, always looked at this as kind of a commercial economic zone kind of thing. So what I want to do, Juan, and again, thanks for taking the time this morning. What I want to do is I wanted to go kind of back to the beginning of even before you got to Trinidad, and then to Trinidad, and then where you are right here. And I'm just going to let you riff for a little bit on setting the table of where you are. Then we'll talk a little more specifics about the magazines, where you've been, some of the challenges, because I know you've had some challenges, and everybody does. Just get over it. You're going to have them. And so please set the table with a little background of you, kind of, and set the table for us, please.
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me, Pat. A cool opportunity to share a little bit about the Venture Field Guide. So I've lived in Colorado since 1994. I originally grew up on the East Coast. I lived in Boulder for a number of years. During that time in Boulder, I actually worked at one of the top bike shops in the country, University Bicycles. It's consistently been one of those bike shops that is super well known in the industry, but at the same time, it was also a pillar of the community. It was located at 9th and Pearl, there in downtown Boulder. And so I was very fortunate enough to get a job there right when I moved there. And I ended up working there for 5 years. And after working there, through some connections that I had, it was kind of cool. Like, I actually met a lot of people in my time there at that bike shop. And I was really keen at remembering people's names and the bikes they bought. So I always had an ability to sort of make connections with people. And there was a gentleman who lived not too far away from that bike shop. His name was John Windsor, and he gave me an opportunity that eventually led me into the advertising world. And so it was that transition out that gave me an opportunity to kind of go into more of that sort of level up professional space. And so I was there, worked with him from 99 all the way until 2007. And a lot of the initial clients that we worked with were in the sports industry. So I've had a long experience in the sports world, and it's actually been my most interesting, appealing sort of work that I've been involved with. And so in about 2006, I actually decided to go out on my own. That was kind of my first foray into entrepreneurialism. I was focused on action sports and the multicultural market. Being a bilingual, I actually trilingual, quadrilingual. I also speak Portuguese as well as Spanish and some German as well. So I was able to take that and that professional experience and go into a space that, frankly, nobody was doing at the time. And so the action sports world would be skate, snow, surf, and or snow sports in general, because skiing could fall under that as well. Mm-hmm. So for a lack of a better way of saying it, I kind of pioneered that space for a period of time. And so I've been really fortunate to always be ahead of the curve in terms of thinking and the work that I've been involved with. And that actually goes back to that time that I was in with a company called Radar Communications, which was with that gentleman, John Windsor. And so I've always been really keen to kind of like looking at things down the road. And so I was there until 2007 with Radar Communications, and I went out on my own. And so I was in Denver until 2015. And then after Denver is when I wound up in Trinidad, and in that time as well, I'd actually ran the Olympic snowboard program for Mexico for 4 years. I was involved in stuff that nobody was really kind of thinking about necessarily. So when I got to Trinidad, though, that work wasn't here, right? Like this was definitely a community where my skill set, while had value, was not attached to anything sort of here. And so I arrived here in Trinidad in the summer of 2016, and then ended up, I guess pioneering again, with the outdoor recreation space, looking at cycling tourism. I definitely saw opportunity to join the conversation on a state level for this region as a whole within that outdoor space. And so having had experience working at bike shops, having been in the sports space, marketing space, I started to see opportunities to bring that to life. And so it was in 2019, after a few years of kind of just laying the groundwork, I was able to get some support from the Colorado Tourism Office to develop what honestly was at the time the first gravel cycling tourism campaign anywhere. And I really believed in this place because, looking around and seeing what was happening as far as trends within cycling as well as tourism, I saw that there was an opportunity to really highlight what this region had as a whole, which was dirt roads. So gravel cycling focuses on dirt roads. It's not about trails. It's really about, getting out into wide open spaces, connecting with nature, getting off the beaten path, not dealing with traffic. And so obviously this is an area where you can really hone in on that. And so my belief was right from the get-go that this could be a destination that was globally appealing, right? But I mean, I jumped all the way ahead of that, but I mean, it was really about regional because I mean, we have a lot of people in Colorado that aren't even that familiar with southeast southern Colorado as far as like a place to spend time, let alone recreate. So in the summer of 2019, put together what was called the Explore Los Animas Dirt Series, which was an event series. I didn't get huge numbers that first year, but the few people that I got were, I would say, influential, right? Like they were people that
they were the right people.
Yeah, exactly. They were people that were in the media. They were bike builders. They were people that, sort of had the ability to kind of see what I was talking about and then be able to translate that to the larger population of cycling enthusiasts as well as industry folks. So from 2019 onward, I really focused in on gravel because it seemed like it was like the space. I'll be honest, I'm more of a mountain biker. That I came into cycling as a mountain biker. When I got here, I knew that was going to be a challenge because there isn't a lot of mountain biking. Fast forward right now, there is some stuff that's happening that's improving that. But really, the opportunity lied with gravel cycling because it was the genre of cycling that was growing fast. There were large events. There were a lot of reasons to kind of focus in on that. But the biggest one I think was the fact that the infrastructure was already here. With mountain biking, you have to actually build trails, and that costs a lot of money. I believe Tony Boone was just telling me I think it's like $50,000 a mile now of machine.
Wow, yeah.
That's a lot of money, right? And so, especially if you start going to communities like Trinidad, which they're not necessarily flush with tons of money to develop that kind of thing. The gravel.
If I can say, it's interesting. If you drive around our region, and I'll just call it the Colexico Territory for the sake of the conversation, and you say gravel grinding, it's getting out there in the wide open spaces and seeing vistas. I tell you what, when the Radfest comes here and you see pictures of that, every place they look at is a postcard. I mean, we've got some of the most beautiful, diverse kind of geology and geography, certainly in Colorado. But and we're unknown. So I love that that what you're doing introduces a whole bunch of people that may be gravel grinders. But here's what we do know: they come for gravel, they come back for other things.
Yeah,
So there's an economic thing that what you do and what other of our pioneer businesses are doing is taking advantage of things that have been here for a very long time. Some people say we were the first mountain town, but the last to develop in Colorado. Other people say we have the most that we've done the least with. And I'd say two things can be true at the same time, right? Yeah. But outdoor recreation is something that really we have an abundance. And so I'll continue, but I just want to say, and also you have an educational background in sports too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this wasn't, hey, I went to a bike shop, worked at a bike shop, and did this stuff. You actually spent a lot of your earlier years in education
Yes.
setting yourself up for this.
So I got my undergrad at the University of Colorado Boulder. It was in history. And then what ended up happening was in 2011, I had written a report. It was called the MOS report. It was an acronym for Multicultural Action Sports. And it was specifically looking at youth demographics and what was happening in the snowboard space, and how, the changing demographics were going to impact it from an economic standpoint, a participation standpoint, and as a sport and lifestyle, essentially. And so, as a result of that report, I was contacted by the executive director of the Ohio University Center of Sports Administration for a program that was aimed at folks that were working in the sports industry, and it was a master's program. So it was called Professional Masters of Sports Administration. And at first, I did not think that it was something I wanted to do, because it was just going back to school and the investment and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of shelved it for a little bit. But then when a year later the opportunity came up to run the Olympic snowboard program for Mexico, which was based out of Vail. I know people will always be like, "What, like Mexican snowboard program?" But there's a fairly large population of Mexican nationals in Vail who have been going there for 40, 50 years, multi-generational. And so that was why there was a connection there with that. And so when that happened, that's when I was like, well, I know what I know and I know what I don't know. And what I don't know is how to run an international snowboard program. So that's when I decided to go back to school, and I got my master's in sports administration from Ohio University, which is in Athens, Ohio. And it was really cool because, if anybody is familiar with the sports industry, Ohio University is the school. Like, it's like the one where it was originally founded by Walter O'Malley, who owned the Dodgers. He was the one that moved the Dodgers from Brooklyn to Los Angeles and got the Giants to move to San Francisco. And his whole thing was just kind of looking at, the future of sports and how it was becoming a business. And so that eventually led to that program when it was started in the 60s. And a lot of the people that have been involved in it are, in the gamut of the sports world, from NFL, collegiate sports, baseball, motorsports. And then I came along and I was like the black sheep because I was running the Olympic snowboard program for Mexico. But it was really an important program for me to be involved with, because it gave me a lot of confidence and knowledge to be able to kind of, take a lot of the insights around, the enterprise of sport and being able to apply that in more practical sort of ways. And so when, again, being an entrepreneur, looking at what was happening gravel cycling, I had that background to be able to look at this not only from a lifestyle standpoint, but also from a business standpoint.
Well, and it's that old, Wayne Gretzky thing.
Yeah.
Go where the puck's going.
Yeah. I've used that quote. I've actually used that quote in presentations. Yeah. It's like, I'm going to be where the puck's going to be at. Right.
So here's something, because I want to tie some business into some of this as well. And so main point is, Juan has a big background in a lot of this stuff and moving forward. I taught my kids something I call inevitable thinking. If you want to do something, you need to make it inevitable. And so sometimes somebody will say, well, I can't do that because of this. What I just heard you say, Juan, is you came to here and you wanted to do this, but you needed to get that education in order to make what you really wanted to do inevitable. And so I just say to anyone, if you get to a point where in your business or wherever, to where you got to jump over the hoop, you need to actually take the time to jump through that hoop. Yeah. Because that's where you're going to get through. And so we sometimes talk about challenges, and we'll get into that, because I know you've had some challenges also along the way, not only with locally, and I want to touch base a little on that, because we are coming from a local perspective, that boom and bust kind of mindset that makes it hard for folks to imagine us having better things, okay, for lack of a better term. Yeah. So let's morph to that. But I really love I wanted to highlight the lesson that you had done all these things, and then you got to this point, and in order to get here, you needed to take the time to do this, the investment, the time out of your life, and those kind of things to do it. And I just want to encourage folks that out of everything Juan said, to me, that's the thing I will remember probably the most. Is I love when people go to something, they hit something, and they know they want to get forward. And I know I'm kind of being preachy now a little bit, but I really want you to break through those kind of obstructions, because there are a lot of obstructions and obstructionists out there, that you got to move through. So Juan, tell us a little bit about the launch of the business in Trinidad. And then I want to get to where you guys have been for the last couple of years and where you are right now.
Sure. So, kind of going back to the challenges, I definitely had people basically being like, you can't do this. Not from like an actual like I'm going to maybe try to stop me, but more along the lines that people weren't thinking that like Trinidad could play in the recreation space, B, that Trinidad was a place that people like bikes, and C, that it was an economically viable thing, right? And so, but again, having had experience outside of Trinidad in the sports world, I looked around and I was like, no, this is an opportunity. This is something real that can happen. And so, from 2019 to 2021. Obviously we had the pandemic as well within that, and that played a big role in things because one of the things that happened during the pandemic was the cycling world was hit with a huge boom, right? There were a lot of people that got out on bicycles. The bike industry was able to really tap into this unmet need that people had to get out of the house and get outside and spend time outside, doing their thing, but at the same time being kind of away from folks that was in that era of social distancing. So the cycling industry was booming, and gravel was continuing to get bigger because, again, it was the thing about one of the things about gravel as to why it's so appealing to a lot of people is that it seems comfortable, right? It seems like you can do that, right? The challenge with mountain biking is that it's gotten so extreme. So, right, you watch any video, you look at any ad, people are jumping off huge rocks. They're doing things that, like, they're cool, and there's some athletes out there that are really kind of pushing the sport, but at the same time, the average person is not doing that. Most people just want to go out and ride their bike and hang out with their friends or their family, and
Yeah,
and those are the people that spend money at the end of the day, right? They're the ones, the early adopters. They're great because they help move things forward. They move a trend forward, but it's really the late majority, which are the people that are, the ones that are coming in from behind that are spending the money, right? They're staying in hotels, they're buying the meals, they're getting gas tanks filled up. They're the ones that are really going out there and participating in a way where it suddenly becomes economically viable for not only a company but also a community. Right. And so from 2019 to 2021 was really focused in on laying the groundwork as to how this trend could come to be activated in Trinidad. And then what ended up happening was the local economic development director in Trinidad at the time, that was Wally Wallace. He expressed interest in doing a guidebook. Now, I never thought of starting a company around a guidebook business, right? I mean, that wasn't necessarily what I wanted to, or rather that I was thinking that I was going to focus in and do. But when he approached, I said, hey, you know what? Like, I've got an idea. Like, I've already done the work. There's already routes. Going back to my history undergrad background, I was like, I got an idea for stories. I've always been a reader. I've always been somebody who grabs whatever's around me. And I love pulling out, like, just information that isn't necessarily always talked about or always known. I'm great at playing trivia because I know a lot of things because, again, I would just read all kinds of, materials and from, books, magazines, pamphlets, you name it. And so, I said to Wally, I was like, look, I've got an idea and this idea I think, could be something really cool. And so I kind of combine a few different sort of, my own little quirky things. Like, for example, there's some notebooks out there called Field Notes. They're about this size, and I had stacks of them, and I always took my notes. And I also do collage work and journaling and all kinds of stuff like that. So that was something that was always on my desk. And so when I was looking at it, I said to myself, you know what? Like, this is perfect because it's the right size to shove in your pocket.
Yep.
It's not something that takes up a lot of space. So right from the get-go, I said, this is going to be something that's going to be, really appealing as well within that. And then kind of going back to my experience in the action sports world, part of the appeal, I've been a skateboarder and a snowboarder for years, but part of the appeal is the creative element of that, right? Like board sports have always had a connection to creative expression. And so art was something that was always a part of it. And so I felt like that was missing in that cycling world. And I really wanted to pull that element out. And so that's where I partnered up with Stephen Beneski. And Stephen and I have known each other for a very long time. We go back to our years in Boulder. And I had a
very, very talented, by the way.
yeah.
Very, very talented.
And I give Stephen all the credit because he really took the idea. Like, I articulated it, but he packaged it, and then he also was able to kind of build off of that. And so we've made a really great team. So I do all the writing on the books. He does all the art and illustration work. And we just really kind of honed in on, this idea that, we could, take this product and put together something really cool. And I'll be honest, going back to the enterprise sort of thinking on this, I knew from the get-go that this would be something that could be applicable in other destinations. It wasn't necessarily that was what I was, what I set out to do initially, but early on, I was able to say to myself, like, wait a second, like, if we get this right, like, this is something that can work and be plugged into multiple places, and it could turn.
Well, you and I met you around that time. Met you before the guide, and I met you around that time. But I think you, from my recollection, okay, you always saw this bigger picture of these things, and I saw the Trinidad Adventure Guide kind of that you and Stephen put together as just your first minimal viable product. In that, to now have a model that went out there and people say, yes, I want one of those too, because you're right. The design is beautiful. It flows really well, but it's really functional. And so people keep these things, and they use them. And I've seen some people that are biking, and they're flipped edges and they're all worn, and these things get used.
It's really cool. So I have a friend who lives out in LA, and I dropped off the Trinidad book in Venice at a shop called Dos Ex Machina, which is a coffee shop, motorcycle / surf shop. And he was in there, and he sent me a photo, and it was of the Trinidad book, and exactly what you were saying. It was worn. It had this, like, you could tell it had been passed through hands. And he was talking to the guys that worked there, and they were just like, yeah, man, this thing is like incredibly popular. Like, people love reading through this. And so
let me interrupt you there, because again, this is somewhat about business. The neat thing, if you're one of the advertisers in one of these field guides, this isn't the newspaper that goes away. This isn't a brochure kind of thing. These are very targeted folks that like to go to a place. They'll buy, bagels, donuts, and coffee in the morning, ride all day, and then end their day with wings, pizza, and beer at the end of the day. These are incredible consumers that have discretionary income. So we may not talk much about this, but if you had an opportunity to be an advertiser, a sponsor in one of these field guides, you're going to be there for a very long time, and people are going to get to know you, and you're actually helping people do something they're passionate about. I don't know a better marketing vehicle that's in any of these areas than this Gravel Adventure Field Guide. It has wheels, it has legs, it sticks around, it has staying power, and then you become, as a sponsor or advertiser, you become part of that community because you're sponsoring it. You're helping people do what they're passionate about. And I didn't want to get that away while it was in my head.
No, and I appreciate you saying that, because a couple things there. Like, one is there's a collector element to this, right? The art is, because guidebooks have been done, and one of the things we thought about, initially was, what's going to get somebody to want to grab a hold of this? And this goes back to that action sports connection with Skate Snow Surf. Like, I collect skateboards because of the art. Like, when I go out and pick a skateboard, the art is number one of the reasons why I end up with the board. It's the same thing with the snowboard. And so when I was thinking about these books, I was like, the art has to be on the cover. It's got to be on the back cover. It's got to be, at the forefront to be able to get somebody's attention and say to themselves, like, what is this? And why do I want one? Yep. And so, it has become a collector. So we actually have people who order books from us. Just so that people will kind of understand. So when we do a book, we distribute them through bike shops. And that goes back to, again, the skate, snow, surf connection, because I knew that skateboard shops and snowboard shops is where, people learn about the lifestyle. That's where the culture is taking place. And so with these guidebooks, I said to myself, like, we have to have these in the bike shop, because it has to create social currency for the bike shop, the consumer, and that dialogue of, like, wanting to learn about these new places, to go ride their bicycles. So, so when we do these books, they are free. The destination pays for the books. People will always be like, well, how do you make any money? So we are a premium product. There is no, I'm not going to, hide that. That is,
Right.
we charge a substantial amount of money to do this. But part of the reason why is because this is a multi-million-dollar industry, right? Like, so for example, if you spend $100,000 with us, this is a product that is essentially established is, a source of revenue that can be anywhere from $1 to $3 to $4 million per year. Now you multiply that times 10, that's suddenly a substantial amount of money, right? And so,
let's jump into that. Let's jump into the economics of these books, and we'll go. So right now, you started with the Trinidad guide. You've done a bunch. Then you did the Huerfano gravel field guide. Here soon, you're going to have the Colfax gravel guide. When does that hit the racks?
That is coming out in the next 30 days. So yes, Raton, Angel Fire, Colfax County. And I'll be honest with you, I'm really excited about this book because I feel like Raton, Colfax County could be one of the ones where we really see an impact. And it's happened in Trinidad. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Trinidad, when I got here in 2016, honestly, nobody rode a bike. Not nobody, but it was a very, very small. And I'm talking less than 6 people. And that's unheard of now because you go to some of these destinations that we've worked in because we've gone to Santa Fe, right? Santa Fe is a $1.4 billion tourism industry. A lot of that is tied to the creative arts space, but there's also a big outdoor recreation space there. But, that's, at the other end of the extreme. We've also been in Bend, Oregon, which is another multi-million-dollar destination. But one of the cool things about, and what I feel most proud of, is the fact that we did this in Trinidad first.
Yeah.
Because it showed that it's like, this is a product that can highlight a place that nobody's really thinking about. And not only is anybody thinking about it from the industry and the enthusiast standpoint, but is nobody's thinking about it from a community standpoint, right?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of times where a business will put something on the map. You guys created the map for Trinidad.
Yeah.
And you put Trinidad on the map through this. And so there's been there's been the Rad Fest that they got introduced to our area through this. There's a lot of things, and just the number of people they come to the Rad Fest, they come here, and I call them be-backs. I'll be back, and they come back, and they stay for a longer period of time. And now that you have this Los Animas Huerfano Colfax book, there's a lot of things that an organization like the Colexico Alliance can wrap ourselves around that as if, okay, those are our books too. Now those are our things that we can use to promote the area and get people to stay here, not drive through, get gas and weed, but stay here for a little bit of time, a destination, but for the region. And I think you guys are doing a great job of that.
So we have the Trinidad book. We've got a Pueblo book.
Yeah.
We've got a San Luis Valley book, a Huerfano County book, and then now we're going to have the Colfax County. And then also, too, this is going to be our 4th book in New Mexico. So we did our first one in Las Cruces. The second one was Santa Fe. Like this is a one book that I'm also really proud of because it's like Santa Fe, like I said, $1.4 billion tourism industry. Trinidad, we're probably, I don't know, I think with the cycling piece right now, we're probably looking at about 2,200, 2,500 people a year coming through. That's netting about a 1.5 million, maybe 2 million in consumer spending. And just so you know, going back to my background and analyzing business and all that kind of stuff, I was looking at other communities to kind of understand what sort of revenues gravel was driving towards there. We have some places, like for example, Kansas has Emporia, which is where the most popular event takes place. That city is seeing anywhere between $7 and $9 million a year, right? Because now they have that event, but it's also drawing people throughout the year to spend time. They're the people who go to vacation in Emporia, Kansas to ride their bike.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second.
Well, I mean, think about what Fruta was able to do.
Right. Fruta
is just an incredible beacon of an example of what you can do if you really do something really well, and you're inviting the folks and you're ready for them to come. Because Fruta you wouldn't know about from a town perspective, but you sure would know about it if you're a mountain biker.
Yeah, no, Fruta's got a world-renowned reputation as a mountain destination now. And that was something that was built over a number of years. I think one of the things that's, we're in an era now where it's really quick. you can jump on something quickly now with the digital space, with the ability to get your word out, sort of thing. So Trinidad has become a gravel bike destination in a fairly short period of time. I'm talking about.
Let me ask you, what do we still need to do? What do we need? What from an expert in that space? And again, this is the Colexico Alliance. We're the old Chamber of Commerce kind of thing, but we're 3 counties. What do we need to do in order to help you and that industry, that segment, or even the outdoor industry? What should we be doing? I think some of, and let me lay the groundwork a little bit more. Some of it could be advocating for you, because I know you had some challenges in government. And I'm not picking on people. I'm just saying you had some challenges with not being embraced. I think if we'd have been there, we could have advocated better for you. So one of the things we want to do more is advocate for businesses, because that's really why one of the core reasons we exist. But what can we do? Not in the past, can't do anything about that. What can we do going forward to help you and other outdoor entrepreneurs be successful?
I mean, from a gravel adventure field guide perspective, there's not much, because we've built ourselves, like our clientele are destinations, right? So, but I think where the opportunity lies for Colexico is the hospitality / service space within that, right? Because it's one thing when you start bringing in all these people, right? But what do they always remember? They always remember, the great things about a place, but they also remember if something doesn't go well, like, right? If they don't have a good place to sleep, if they don't have a good place to eat, if there's no, nightlife kind of thing, like you have to create, there are other experiences that need to be highlighted outside of just riding your bicycle. Right. And I think that's where the opportunity is better promoting some of the local businesses, advocating for new local businesses to support that space, right? Because let's just say like Trinidad's getting 1.5 million. Like, we could double that. I mean, we could triple that, and still but we'll never be able to do that unless we have those supporting businesses that are allowing that to happen. And, I see it all the time in different places. Stillwater, Oklahoma. I was just in there earlier this year. They have the Mid-South Gravel event that takes place in March. It's a kickoff to the whole gravel cycling race season. And, that place gets 3,000 cyclists showing up. You go downtown on their main street, everybody is booked. There are people moving in through every business, whether it be a brewery, whether it be the bike shop, whether it be the coffee shop. There's but it's a well-oiled machine there at this point, right? Like, there are people that know that this weekend's happening. They know that that's a big weekend. They staff properly. They promote themselves properly. They if they need to adjust their hours, they do that, because they know that there's so much money to be made that one weekend. I
would say one of the things we need to do is we need to do more than one weekend here, one weekend there. When I was down here, we had the Blues Fest, you had the Artocade, you had some things, and now we've lost a lot of those things. And I think there's some the wrong messaging gets out there when you start losing things without creating more things. We still have the Rad Fest, and I think they're still committed to our area, but I certainly would like to see, whether we're not in the event business anymore per se, but I do believe we need to have our LTAB board, for instance. They need to embrace a little bit more about some of these things that are being successful, because if we find that successful, and you said it's 1.2, let's say $1.3 million, to double that, the easiest thing we can do is embrace that a little bit more and put a little bit more wood on the fire, right?
So one of the things that I really enjoy talking with destinations about with the guidebook is, we're not anti-event. Like, events are really great, and in fact, the Lifetime Rad Dirt Fest gave out the books for the first couple of years of the event, and I think that helped for a lot of people to know about the area. They were informed through the history and the culture that we share within the pages of the book. That you were able to use the routes to come in, train or spend time here. But one of the things that we talk about is sustainable we call it sustainable gravel, sustainable tourism, right? Like, got it. The idea is that we don't necessarily believe we have to have an event to get people to come in, right? Like 3,000 people, like, for example, in Mid-South, like, that would crush Trinidad. We couldn't handle that. Like, I mean, in all honesty, like, and that's just, it'd be awesome if we could, but like, we can't. But we can handle those 3,000 people throughout the year. when we started talking about every weekend having, carloads of people coming in. So we could still be getting that money. We could still be getting what the economic output that comes with that, but it's distributed throughout the year. And so that gives local businesses the opportunity to develop, their services, their products for that audience in a way where it just feels, sustainable, right? Like it's not overwhelming sort of thing.
Well, it doesn't, and also it doesn't have to be a thing. It doesn't have to be now you have two big gravel events.
Right.
It doesn't have to. You could have other things. I know we lost the Trinidad Blues Fest, but we have Curtis and Suzanne of the Trinidad Lounge. They're launching the Fancy Spider Music Fest, and that'll be in the fall. So, and they don't have to be big events. I think we could be known a lot for just the music and the artistic, our creative class economy can grow to bring more folks coming in. So you come in for some of those things, and you bring your bike. Yeah. You don't come in just because not everybody wants to race either.
Right. Exactly. And it's funny you bring up Kurt and Suzanne because they were at breakfast one morning and at Almax, and I sit at the front table, and it just always generates conversation. There was a band that had played the night before. They were all sitting around, and it came up in conversation that I was doing the gravel guides, and it turned out a couple of them were cyclists. And so I actually went back to the office. I grabbed a bunch of books and brought them back and gave them a stack, and they were just blown away because we gave them away for free. And so, but the thing is they were like, oh man, I've got a reason now to come back. There's I now know, that this is here. And so, yes, it's that adjacent sort of thinking, right? Like just because I'm a cyclist doesn't mean I have no other interests.
Exactly.
Right? Whether it be, to go check out a First Friday art show, whether it be to go check out a band, whether it be to just walk around and look at architecture, right?
Well, I've been saying this for a long time. Trinidad is one of the most walkable towns I've ever lived in. Okay. And it's not just a Main Street walk town. It's three-dimensional. You got Main Street. You also got commercial. But on a weekend, there may be five live music acts, opportunities going on in our town from a Friday, Saturday night. And I know Curtis and Suzanne do that, but also the Well Hotel and Moose's, and a lot of folks are doing this. So somebody can come into town to ride on a Saturday, but they're going to, and I think we have some fine restaurants in all categories. I think some of the times our businesses are challenged because when we're really slow, it's hard to staff up as if you're going to be busy. Okay. Right. So many of our businesses are mom and pop, husband and wife kind of businesses. And quite frankly, you can't work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. You got to have some time off. And I think one of the things we could do a better job on is if we have hours, stick to those hours. If you say you're open to this period of time, be always open at that period of time unless something really comes up. But I do believe when we start looking at things, at least from the Colexico Alliance's perspective, of more of a multi-pronged economy, something that's built around outdoor recreation, but also the creative class economy, and also small scale manufacturers with makers and producers that make things here. And I think we have some opportunities there to not to be a one trick pony, because there are some downsides to becoming a full out outdoor recreation destination. And there's a lot of displacement with that, and those things. So I think one of the things we're looking at is certainly we need a three-legged stool economy across our region, not just be known for, hey, come here and ski in the winter and bike in the summer, whatever.
It's like everything else. You can't just be one thing. You have to have multiple pillars, diversity. But your point brings up something that was really interesting as well that happened with one of the guidebooks, which was we did one in Roanoke, Virginia. And we were on a call with them, and this was well after the book had already come out, and we were just kind of catching up because they were going to do a reprint, and we were catching up on things. And one of the things that they talked about with us was that they used the guidebook to attract businesses. So when an employer was looking at Roanoke that would maybe hire 10, 20, 30, 100 people, they were about what sort of lifestyle can we offer our employees? And they used the gravel guide as a selling point. They were saying, we give this out to these employers so that they now understand that if they move their company to our town, we have the amenities to make sure that they have happy, productive employees.
Well, exactly. And that speaks to some of the things we have in being and we'll give a shout out to our friend Christine Loudon, who also did some stuff in the gravel grinding space over in Branson, but with the emergent campus. What happened in the emergent campus over in Fremont County, Canyon City, Rural Gorge area is, they had that tech night out, and they found out after doing that a little bit, about 20 guys got together, mostly guys got together that were in the tech space that worked in Silicon Valley or for tech companies all over the world. And they realized that those 20 folks, with the incomes they were being paid, and they wanted to live there for the quality of life, for the balance, for the be able to recreate and also work in the same day, not have to get away for the weekend. And they found that they were able to get those 20 folks in there, most getting paid on average $100,000 and more. That did more economic development to the businesses in the area than opening up a mine again and hiring 200 people. Didn't require any increased capital expenditure. Those folks actually got a house, got wired up. And so one of the things that we can do certainly with the Adventure Guide and other things. So if you're somebody that's creating something similar to what Juan and Stephen have done, we're open for business to help promote what you're doing. So we'll say that. But what we're finding is the emergent campus is set up for folks, and some of this was inspired by COVID. We need to hire people where they want to live. In many cases, we'll get great people. We can pay them less because the economy where they live isn't Silicon Valley economy. It's Trinidad, Los Animas County, or Huerfano, or Colfax County, and they can live there, do great work. We can hire great people, empower them to have a great life. It'll cost the business less, and they can be housed in the emergent campus right over here near the college. And so there are some things, when we talk about some of the things Juan's doing and other people doing, they do triangulate together. He does a book in Roanoke, Virginia. It ends up being one of the pieces in their economic development package that goes out, because quality of life is important to all of us, that ever evasive balance in life that we're always there. What's balance, we can deliver that here. So, Juan, I really appreciate you pointing that, because this isn't just something that has to sit in a bike shop,
mm-hmm.
right?
Right, and it's not just about tourism. It's about
right,
attracting residents. It's about quality of life. It's about presenting a place as being worthy of living,
right,
and working, and spending your time and pursuing things that make you happy, right? Because again, people are happy because I talk about I was teaching at Trinidad State College for a couple of years, and I was doing this recreation leadership class, and one of the things I kept talking about with the students was human capital. Like, we can't put a dollar amount on that, right? Because humans are either they're a range of emotions or a range of things that are involved with being a human being. But it's like, if you're feeling satisfied and happy with your life, if you feel connected to your community, if you feel like you're in the place where you're just like firing all cylinders, you're going to be productive. You're going to be happy to output whatever it is that you're doing, so that your community improves, so that you have an opportunity to sort of give people a reason to feel good to be in that community. So human capital is something that outdoor recreation really facilitates in a undertone sort of way that has, if you magnify it, the ability to really change a place. And so, I think that's one of the things that a place like Trinidad, which has bled population for decades at this point, right? It does. We certainly could use more young people here, right? And so that's where that human capital becomes more, important, and that's where that recreation, the cycling, it enhances that. It gives that a basis.
Well, exactly. And most people, quite frankly, have a choice in where they live.
Yeah.
And so if you give them the things where they live that they really want, that value to them, that lets them live the best life that they're after, certainly you'll attract more of those folks. Now, just to let folks know that are maybe hopefully still watching, is that when Juan and I first talked, I said, Juan, we'll go 15 minutes, maybe a half hour. Okay. I said, when we get to a half hour, if you're cooking and we're doing sharing some good information, we'll keep this going. We are coming up though on an hour here. That flew.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, yeah. Look at
that flew.
I can talk about this stuff. And that's what I do. I'm always
exactly. Well, Juan, that's why I said I got to get my friend Juan in here to share some stuff about his things. And I want to hold Juan up as an example of what we're wanting folks to do. Come here if you have a great idea. come here, launch that idea. You can make it national like Juan. Actually, his book's international. You're in Guatemala, aren't you? Also with
Yeah,
the field
so
guide?
we are an international point now. But
Yeah,
here's another thing I do want to share that I also
please.
talked about in the class when I was talking to students is it's like the idea of innovation, right? Innovation isn't, it tends to get associated with technology, digital, but innovation is like, it's everything and anything. Innovation is you as a person innovating, your thinking, your behaviors, your attitude. Like the idea that like innovation is somehow, associated with an urban place is a false narrative. It's innovation can come from anywhere, and that includes rural. And in what we did with Gravel Adventure Field Guide was innovative within the cycling space. It was innovative within the tourism space. It was innovative within Trinidad. It was innovative within, rural across, not only the United States, but like, as we were just saying, internationally. And so innovation can come from anywhere. And
Well,
that's the beauty of like, places that, have beautiful scenery, that have, opportunities to connect with nature, because that is going to drive innovation. If you're looking.
well, and I'll add to that. Not everybody can be an inventor.
Mhm.
Maybe you don't invent something, but everybody can be an innovator. Everybody can take something out there and see something that's missing, or something that's ancillary to that, or something can be bolted onto that. So yeah, I think that's a great message in class, but it's also a great message to our business owners. If you're doing something right now, look in other places, see what other folks are doing. Open up your mind to what other examples out there. It doesn't even have to be in your industry. I mean, there's things happening in different spaces that again are incredible technology, but it doesn't look like technology. It's more innovation. Juan, we've got a couple more minutes left. I do. If you want more Juan, and why wouldn't you? I just am always inspired by him. And so graveladventurefieldguide.com. Graveladventurefieldguide.com. Those 4 words in one. Go there. Take some time, get yourself a nice, beverage, because you'll be there a little while. It's just, there's a lot there, and you can see all these incredible communities. There's 18 now, there'll be 19 in 30 days, and then there'll be 20 here real soon. All of these communities, Juan, Stephen, and their partners have activated an area of an economy for these places that did not exist before. I find that to be tremendously cool. Is that having the ability from some little place in Trinidad, in southern Colorado, and we'll have folks from northern Colorado, be able to do something that activates true localism in other areas that really help enrich people's lives, and do it on a fun level, but also do it on an economic level where more businesses make more money, because people are taking an adventure there for an experience to do what we do. And so, Juan, a tip of the hat to what you do. Anything you want to add just to close this out?
No, just, like I said, we got this Raton Colfax County book coming out here in the next several weeks. I'm excited about it. I think if anybody has a chance, there is the new Explore Raton Visitor's Guide. We've got a story that came out with regards to this book coming out, and I wrote it, so I feel very proud of this book. And this is one where I'm really excited because, Colfax County is another one where, Northeast New Mexico is a little bit, kind of forgotten, but, there's some amazing scenery there. The population density is really low. There's opportunities to get into astrotourism, night sky. You have Angel Fire. You have Angel Fire's got a great mountain bike history to it. But this is now going to complement that. You're going to get into places like Cimarron with this guidebook. You're going to get into places that, you didn't even really realize. You just drive up and down I-25, and then you have the Raton Clayton volcanic field right off the road. I mean, There's so much there to get somebody to look at it differently. And there's a lot of exciting things that are happening within Raton's downtown Main Street. So it complements it, it highlights it. The El Raton Media Works is another piece that we're talking about, because one of the things we try to do with the guidebooks as well is like, don't get caught up in the history, right? Don't get caught up in the past, because a lot of times the past is kind of painful, right? There's trauma associated with decline, industry loss, population loss, all those sorts of things. And so what we really want to do is highlight the things that are happening about the future. Because
Well, exactly, and I'm going to take your cue right there because, quite frankly, all the places Juan just mentioned, these are historically connected economic communities. And when I say historically, I mean pre-United States being a country, pre-Colorado being a state, and pre-New Mexico being a state. Huerfano, Los Animas, and Colfax County have been doing business for hundreds of years. Okay, and so what we forgot is we all got in our own little silos, and we have this chamber and this business alliance and this group, but we're connected communities. And so the places Juan just said, Eagle Nest, Angel Fire, Springer, Levita, Cuchara, Aguilar, Honey, Stonewall. That's us.
yeah.
Just sometimes I talk to my friends, my economic partners down in other places, and this invisible line between Colorado and New Mexico, it's just that, it's invisible line. It doesn't stop us from doing things, and it never did in the past. But sadly, sometimes our state legislature in Colorado forgets that Trinidad in our area is part of the state. And the same thing has happened to our friends in northern New Mexico, in Raton and these other places. The Santa Fe forgets that, in Albuquerque forgets that that's part of New Mexico.
So
Well,
real quick, so something I do mention in the Colfax County book, and I also mentioned it in the Trinidad book, is that the Santa Fe Trail was the first commercial highway in the United States.
Exactly. We ooze with incredible history. Yes, there's those blips of hard times. That's why they're called busts. But I believe we're in a more sustainable kind of boom area right now that doesn't even have to boom. It actually just is. It actually has a good hockey stick level of growth with a lot of. I mean, if you come to Trinidad or Raton or Walsenburg or Levita, you're going to find some of the most incredible, gifted, talented, gritty entrepreneurs and business people anywhere. I will put our entrepreneurs and our business owners up against anybody else's from just a perspective of perseverance, creativity, quality, and just passion. And so if you watch this a little bit, certainly grab an adventure guide. There's 3 now serving our area. Juan and Stephen have the Colexico Territory covered completely. And again, Juan, sure appreciate your time. Reach out to Juan. Easy to go through the website. Where do you have the books here? Are they at Tarantula? Do you have any books at Tarantula?
Ultimate Sports and Fitness has some. The Visit Trinidad Visitor Center has some as well. They actually, the city of Trinidad actually just re-upped on a supply. We have kicked around the idea of a second book, or an updated book, but that isn't by any means been committed to. So I don't want to, jump ahead. But if we were to do one, I mean, there's enough here that I could do a whole nother book.
Well, exactly. Where can somebody get the Huerfano book?
The Huerfano book. Let's see. There. I believe the Mercantile has some. Some of the local businesses like Gubs has some as well.
Gubs, excellent.
Our county actually just did a reprint on the book as well. And there's some folks in Levita, some of the local businesses. Because one of the things we do, if you advertise with us, you get a stack of books. You have books for.
What about Colfax? Where do you think you'll be distributing them down in Colfax?
There'll be local businesses there in Colfax County, but again, so half the books remain in the destination, the other half goes out. So these books will be going to bike shops and breweries and coffee shops in Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, Albuquerque, Denver. Because again, we try to drive people from the outside into the destination.
Exactly.
So if you're like in an 8-hour radius, but we'll even go further. So, we have some really good bike shops that we work with in Los Angeles, in parts of Arizona. And we will, like in some cases, send some of those books out to those places as well. So we're really strategic about it. We don't just, put them in place. And we also, encourage people to realize it's like, don't just stick these out and let people grab them, because people grab free stuff all the time.
Yeah,
and
no.
These are something special. Like if you have one and you're not a cyclist, but you have a cyclist in your life, you're gonna stoke them out by giving them one of these books. You're gonna make a connection happen, whether it be new or reinforce a past connection with one of these guys' books. So,
and again, love. I mean, that's well thought out, and it's working. It's working. It's something that's working for everybody that's participating. Somebody can go to your website though
Yes.
and order a book. If they're wanting to travel someplace, they can go there and order a book straight from the website, right?
Yeah, they're $11. It includes free shipping. It's super reasonable. I mean, what can you get for $11 these days? I mean,
Right.
you can't even get a sandwich. I was just in Albuquerque and I got a sandwich and a Coke and it was $27. So
Well, I'll say this: if you like to bike, if you like to get out in the wide open spaces, and every place you look, every vista is a postcard or whatever, or you're a gravel grinder, that $11 is going to pay for itself just in the first day you land in any of those destinations. Now, if you just want a collector, well, they're $11. And then as a collector, it's a pretty cool thing too. But if you put that thing to use and you get some tattered covers on that thing and you put some notes in there, that's going to be the best $11 I think you'll ever spend in that space.
I mean, and it's pretty amazing. Like, so I was just in Las Vegas. We did a book in Ely, Nevada. And so I was distributing that book. And before I was walking into one, I'd never been into this bike shop. Before I even got through the door, there was a guy who was like, I know what this is. I've seen these. And he pulled out 2 other ones.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, cool. Look at that. And so we have something that is really special. And I feel very lucky and proud to have put this together and work with Stephen and
your team.
And again, I like one of the things that I feel probably most proud of is that I did it in Trinidad. It wasn't supposed to happen. Wasn't supposed to happen here. It was. No. I literally had people who told me that this would never fly.
And so again, let me. If you're watching this and if you're entrepreneurial or you just want, you don't have to be entrepreneurial. Just we want to open a business. There's nothing wrong with being a shopkeeper or owning one restaurant. Listen to that, and because that's what we intend to do in 2025. We intend to launch a lot of innovative businesses that are looking at the seams and the edges, and know that they can launch here in Trinidad. And so we're not losing brain drain. We keep some of our youngest and best brains here, but we're also attracting so many other folks here. So Juan, so much pleasure, and look forward to it. And Juan's in Trinidad now. So a lot of times when I talk to him, I'll say, Juan, where are you? He's someplace in the world, So I live vicariously kind of through him sometimes. So awesome, Juan. Thank you.
So we're heading to Pennsylvania this summer. 2 books out there. Going to Appalachia.
Appalachia. I hiked the Appalachian Trail when I was 13. About 800 miles of it. 13 is a cool thing. All right, Juan, thanks much. We're done. And I look forward to folks seeing this and then being inspired to do their own dream.
Right on. Thanks. Take care, everyone.